Fad diets don't work. Every week, there's a new diet that claims to be the recipe for fat loss. But the one thing all these fad diets are missing is sustainability. Sustainable habits really is the true secret to losing weight and keeping weight off by structuring a diet that is effective, but also something that you can repeat on a daily basis. And in today's podcast, we will show you exactly how to structure your diet and your workouts to lose fat, but also sustain your progress and keep the weight off for good. Before we dive into the podcast, if you guys are looking for more structure on your nutrition and you're looking for specific macros, we have two different resources on our website for you. So you can head over to fitgrindformula.com, or if you're watching on YouTube, the link will be in the description in the comments below. We have a form on our website that you can go fill out, and we'll do a free custom macro calculation for you. And then we also have our macro cheat sheet, which is a free PDF guide that you can download that is going to give you some good ideas of a good protein, good carb, good fat source. So like I said, if you're looking for more structure after listening to the podcast today, head over to our website, fitgrindformula.com, and you can check out those two free resources.
Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about how to sustainably keep fat off. While last week we talked a little bit about how to build muscle while losing fat, this week we're going to dive into more of how we can keep that fat off and sustain that lifestyle.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people, when they start their diet, they set really unsustainable habits. And we'll talk about how to set some good habits so that you can continuously lose fat, and you can lose it the right way. I think a lot of people, they get frustrated because they go on this crazy diet or they do something that's very extreme and they see weight loss and they see rapid results. But the problem is that program was so extreme, or it wasn't something that they could sustain so effectively, you don't know how to actually lose weight sustainably. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to give you some tips and some tricks on how you can structure your nutrition, your workout program, and just your entire program to create sustainability so that you can lose weight, keep it off, and really understand how you need to structure your program so that you can effectively live this healthy lifestyle and keep the weight off.
Now, while there's no one size fits all or one program fits all, there's different tools and tricks that we are going to give you guys. But just keep in mind that some of these things might not work for you and your lifestyle. And just because a friend of yours is doing something that she got great results for or he got great results from does not mean that that will work for you. So I think a big piece of this puzzle is going to be educating yourself and trying different things. A lot of it is like trial and error and determining what it is that fits into your lifestyle. I know I'm going to keep saying that. Your lifestyle, sustainability, those two words I think are going to be like my number one word choice today.
Yeah.
But it's just so important to keep in mind that everyone is so different and every body is so different. So, you can take pieces of what someone else is doing and try them and decide whether or not that works for you. But it's not a one size fits all.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start. Is you need to ask yourself this question. If you are starting a diet or starting a workout and you kind of think to yourself, man, this is going to be hard to stick with, then it's probably not the diet or the workout program for you or what you should be doing. Because if you do a diet for 4 weeks, see great results, or you do this program for 6 weeks, see great results, but then you go back to your old ways and you gain all the weight back, what was the point of it? That's what we really try and strive to teach the clients that we train here in person, the clients that we train online, is yes, we want to work hard. We want to see good results. We want to see consistent progress, but we want to sustain that. We want to build upon what we're doing. We don't want to set the foundation of okay, I'm going to work really hard for 3 months to get my beach body, and then I'm just going to not work out all summer. No, you need to build on that. Okay, what's the next goal? What's the next goal? And I think it's that complacency that people get that, okay, I've reached this goal, but not taking it upon themselves to set that next goal. So we've talked about that in the past too, in an entire podcast. But yeah. I think the first place that you should really start and ask yourself is this something that I'm going to really struggle with sticking with? And if that's the answer to that question is yes, then maybe you need to rethink that program, that diet, or find ways you can create more flexibility or sustainability with that diet or program so that you can stick with it.
Yeah, and I think another good way to get started too is after determining if it's something that you can stick with, determine if you are ready for that process. Because if you have a lot going on in your life and you know that, adding in another, thing to your plate is going to just stress you out more, it might not be a good time to start adding in all these new ideas and trying all these new things. So ask yourself, okay, what's going to work for me, and am I ready to commit to this? Because going into a diet and educating yourself and figuring out the lifestyle for you is not something that happens overnight. It's not something that you just get results quickly and then that's it, it's over. It's something that you have to educate yourself, you have to learn, experiment with, and you have to be willing to put in that work. And if you're not willing to put in the work, then it just might not be a good time for you to get started. And that's frustrating for people to hear, but it's the only way that you're actually going to get results and see results is if you are mentally ready to accept the challenges and put in the work.
Yeah. And I think, we talk about diets, and when we talk about diets, we are speaking to the food that you're eating throughout the day. I think the term diet itself is like very restrictive in nature. Like, I'm going to try this certain fad diet, or I'm going to try the watermelon diet. Those are really extreme things, very restrictive things. And you don't have to be super restrictive in nature in order to lose weight. Like we talked about with the sustainability. If I told you that you could never have a cookie again, the first thing that, comes to mind is like, I want a cookie, like yeah. I want a cookie now that you're saying that I can't have that, versus saying have a cookie, track it in your macros, and you allow yourself that flexibility. It allows the freedom, and you actually end up wanting the cookie less, or when you eat the cookie, you feel like you've earned it because you're tracking it, you're working hard, you're seeing progress. So the diet, when we talk about that, we're speaking to the food that you're eating, and we do believe in balance. There's a lot to be said about doing 80% of the things right with your diet, 85, 90%, but the other 10 to 20%, you are fitting in fun things. Maybe you're going out to dinner with family, or taking your kids out for ice cream, or whatever it is. Like, you can still have those things. You can still practice that balance. We've talked about that time and time again in these podcasts and on our YouTube and on Instagram, that this should not consume your life. It should add to your life. And you still can make awesome progress doing 80% of the things right. But that's where we need to get you, is doing most of the things right. Throughout the week, you're structuring your food around whole food sources. You understand what a good fat, a good carbohydrate, a good fat source is. You understand those things on how to piece macros together. And that is where you're really going to start to fall into this lifestyle, and it becomes so much easier to maintain that when you approach it as a lifestyle rather than a diet.
Yeah, and like you mentioned the cookie thing, I was totally going to bring this up because me personally, like, I know that is something that I can't really live without. And if you know that there's certain foods that you want in your diet, and maybe, whether it's chocolate or a cookie, or, maybe it's like chips and salsa, like, every person is so different in that aspect. Some people like more salty stuff, some people like more sweet stuff, but that's where we have to play around a little bit and determine, like, okay, if I know that once a week I want to have this cookie, I am going to plug that in, pre-log it, fit the rest of my day around that, and make sure that I can fit that in. And that doesn't mean that you have to plug that in for the rest of your life, because once you learn what that looks like, you are going to be able to use that in the future and know that, okay, I know that this cookie is X amount of calories. Yep. And I know that, I'm probably going to go over in my carbs and fats if I don't decrease them throughout the rest of the day.
Yep.
So just educating yourself in that aspect, and, going out to dinner, if you're going to go out to dinner with friends and family, just looking at the menu ahead of time and figuring out what you can have on the menu that is still going to give you the options of hitting your carbs, fats, and protein.
Yeah. So that's a good segue. Carbs, fat, and protein, talk about macros. And that's really why we have that resource on our website. Our macro calculation is, we have a form that you can go fill out and give us an idea of where you're at with your activity level. So we can give you a good place to start. It might not be the perfect place. It might not work forever type of thing. We may have to make tweaks and adjustments, but it's a good place to start, because there's a lot to be said about extremes and avoiding extremes when we're dieting. If you are doing this crash diet, we're eating 1,000 calories a day or 1,200 calories a day, you are not going to see progress or the progress that you want to see. Versus if you actually eat closer to your maintenance or in a slight caloric deficit. So if you're tracking here with us, being in a caloric deficit is basically just saying that you are eating fewer calories and your body's burning. And that's where we like to start people off, is not in this crazy huge caloric restriction, caloric deficit, because if we start you too low, eventually you're not going to have anywhere to go. So we have to give our body enough fuel, give our body enough energy. And me and Alyssa were talking about this before the podcast, and we're like, man, we should have been recording, because we were on a whole rant about, in fitness, there's this big difference between a diet to hop on a stage at 5% body fat in a bodybuilding competition and a diet to lose weight, prioritize your health, feel better, have more energy. Those two things are so bipolarly opposite. And a small percentage of people are going to want to try and train to get to 5% body fat, hop on a stage, that type of thing. And that's where the extremes come. But the problem is where people think that you have to include those extremes into your workout program, into your diet program to see just basic results, just losing body fat, putting on muscle mass. And I think, we could go on a rant about this, about how you have to have sustainable habits, because eventually there's negative side effects that start to happen when you are so anal about your diet, about your workouts, about everything. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be strict and that you shouldn't be diligent and that you shouldn't stay consistent. Those are foundational things that need to be in your diet and your program. And we are believers that hard work always pays off, and consistency is always the approach that you want to take with everything. But there's a lot to be said about sustainability. We're kind of beating that to a point. But
I told you that word was going to be used a
lot.
It
is, yes. The sustainability factor it's so important. And that's something that me and Alyssa both have taken our fitness to very extreme places. And through that, we've also learned a lot about taking your body and your fitness to extreme places and realizing what's really important in life. And I think that has taught me so much, but I think it helps taking it to that place so that you can kind of rein in, like, okay, here's the extreme, here's the other extreme. Where do I find the balance in that?
Yeah. I mean, like you said, I've been on that side of doing bodybuilding competitions for years, and there's nothing to say that I wouldn't go back to that. But with this current phase in my life, it was important to me to find a healthy balance with food. Mm-hmm. And for my kids and with business, there was just a lot going on. And I truly believe that when you are in that bodybuilding mindset, it becomes a selfish thing, because it really is. It almost feels like it's like having another child, because you're constantly thinking about it, constantly, having to, revolve your day around just your food and your workout and being selfish. And that does get in the way of relationships and some mental barriers. But I do think that it's important that you go into a deficit in a healthy way. When we do get into those competitions, we tend to be in a deficit for long periods of time. And when that happens, it can mess with our hormones and it can mess with our metabolism. And then when we come off of that deficit, if we're not reverse dieting correctly, then what happens is we just blow up, because we, weren't eating like fruits and vegetables because we were trying to stay super low calorically and avoid any inflammation. And in bodybuilding world, like fruit and vegetables are very inflammatory when you're getting ready to go step on stage. And you're depleted, so your water is really low. So when you hop off stage and you go to, eat normal, you just blow up. And it's really hard to come out of that. And so it's not necessarily a bad thing to do a bodybuilding show. I just think that you mentally have to be prepared to do that. And like you said, go through it and see exactly what we're talking about as far as the dramatic differences.
Yeah. And we're not trying to knock bodybuilding or competing. Like if that's your goal, that's awesome. Like I support that. Like I don't think any goal that anybody sets, as long as you're passionate about it, like I'm all for it. But what we're trying to say is most people can see amazing results doing 80% of the basics, like just eating good solid protein in your diet, getting enough protein, actually eating at maintenance or slightly below maintenance, not eating below your basal metabolic rate. Those very simple things that are going to make a huge difference in your program, actually fueling your body, properly hydrating your body, getting enough vegetables and fruit in your diet, those really basic things that are going to take care of so many other things in the background. And, I talk about counting macros, and it's very important to count your macros if you're really looking to like specifically lose a certain amount of weight, especially if you have a time frame that you're trying to lose that in. Like if you are looking at like a good, better, best option, like the best option is going to be tracking your food, counting your macros. Like that's going to be the best option. The second best option, so maybe like a better option, not the best option, but a better option is going to be maybe you're just trying to eat protein at each meal. You're trying to structure your food around whole food sources. And then maybe like a good option just be like, get 3 meals in. I know a lot of people don't like eat enough throughout the day. They just eat like once or twice. There's levels to fitness. There's levels to nutrition. But if you really are looking to like optimize your results and kind of streamline that progress, the best approach is to track your macros. But like Alyssa mentioned earlier, you don't have to track your macros for the rest of your life. So currently right now, I'm not strictly tracking macros. And the thing with that though is that I tracked macros very strictly for years, but that process allowed me to have a good understanding of like, this food has this amount of protein, this food has this amount of carbs. I had to know exactly what 32 grams of peanut butter looks like on a spoon. I could close my eyes, weigh it out, and look, and it's probably 32 grams. Like you just do that repetitively, but it takes going through that process to understand what all the food looks like and how it should all piece together. But like I said, if you really are looking to streamline your your progress, I do recommend that you track your macros. And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to be forever. Maybe it's just for a couple weeks, for a couple months. Just get a good understanding of what that looks like. That is a huge way that you can streamline that progress.
Yeah, and if you don't know what your basal metabolic rate is, or you're not familiar with what it even is exactly, it's going to be those calories that you're burning at rest. So if you're just laying in bed all day and maybe you're sick and you're just laying around and not doing anything, that is the amount of calories that you burn. There is some calculators on the internet that you can use to guess what yours is, but another good way to do that is we have like an in-body machine that gives us that information. And so you'd never want to be at that number or below. You always want to be at least over. I even tell people like 200 calories at least over that number. But if let's say you are below or at that number, then we wouldn't want to put you in a deficit. We would instantly want to build up your metabolism. And sometimes people don't like to hear that, but we have to build up that metabolism and then we can go into that deficit. But as far as like, staying in that fat loss area, we don't always have to be in a deficit, first of all, because
Amen.
yeah,
I'm glad
because
you said that. I'm glad, because I was going to bring that up. So that's perfect.
Yes, because being in that deficit actually does the opposite of what you want it to do. It's actually just going to hold on to that fat. And so figuring out where you currently are is also going to be a really good start to your journey. And then once you figure that out, then you can play around with numbers, go into that deficit. And then, like I said, being in that deficit for short term, the goal is to not be in that phase for a long time. 8 weeks is like a good range. I like to say 8 weeks is a good, like, healthy spot to stay at in that deficit. And if you can go all out, balls to the wall, 80-20, even 90-10, and just, really structure your food around those macros and track your macros perfectly, then the likelihood of you being in that deficit for anything more is less.
Yeah. So I think we've kind of hit the nutrition point. One thing that I want to talk about was your workouts. How do you sustainably structure your workouts to continuously create the stimulus to lose body fat? And I think we've talked about this before too as well, but I think one of the most important things to focus on in the gym is progression in any way, shape, or form. We talked about this last week in our podcast too as well, but if you are on a treadmill and you burn 300 calories, as soon as you hop off that treadmill,
it's done.
The calorie burn is over. Versus if you spent time, invested time in strength training and you build muscle, your body's actually going to burn more calories at rest. So I talked about this last week too. It's the difference between saving money and investing money. Think of your cardio as like saving money. It's good. It's good to save money. But what if you took that money and you invested it and you got a bigger return on it? It's the same idea there. So you need both in your program. You need to have conditioning, you have strength training. But by building muscle and focusing on getting stronger through strength training, I'm not saying that has to be these crazy bodybuilding workouts. If you're not into that, that's okay. But just whatever you're doing, you try to progress. Okay, I did 20 pounds on this exercise. I did that for 10 reps last week. I'm going to try and do 12 this week. Yeah. I'm going to try and do 25 pounds. Like, it could be very small progressions over time, but that is a huge emphasis in anyone's program. I don't care if you're 15 years old or if you're 85 years old. You have to have progressive overload some way, shape, or form to tell your body that it needs to build muscle mass and it needs to hold on to the muscle mass that you have so your metabolic rate can stay as high as possible so that you're burning calories throughout the day. Because we're talking about like sustaining progress and sustaining fat loss. If you're just naturally burning more calories, it's going to be so much easier to lose the weight that you're trying to lose and then also keep it off versus say that you lost all this weight through cardio, you just on the treadmill, running, and you're doing all this cardio all the time. Well, as soon as you take that out of the equation, you haven't built any muscle along the way. It's just going to be really hard to maintain that level of cardio and that intensity of cardio. So invest time not only in cardio, it's important, yes, but also strength training. So you can build your metabolic rate, you can improve your body composition, and you could just naturally burn more calories at rest.
I think a lot of times too, people think of like weight loss, fat loss as cardio or like high intensity training. And so they start upping their cardio and thinking and in hopes that that's going to give them the results, when in reality, we want to encourage cardio, but more so the movement, because a lot of people are, stuck at a desk sitting, not able to get out and get in like the full 8,000 to 10,000 steps that you should be getting in daily.
Yeah.
And so if you can just increase your movement and increase your steps, then that alone will help your fat loss progress. Because just jumping on the cardio machine and doing cardio, like you said, only will burn that 300 calories that you burn in that short time. But then what are you doing the rest of the day? Are you still moving? Are you still incorporating any movement? Or are you just getting 2,000 steps a day? So I think turning to not just, I have to do a bunch of cardio, turn it to, okay, I want to bring more movement into my day-to-day activity level. And then on top of that, incorporating weight training, because that is going to, like you said, burn more calories at rest and give you that body that you are desiring. Because a lot of the times we have this image in our head of what we want our body to look like. And a lot of the times we use that as like tone, or I want my legs to look this way and my arms and my stomach. And a lot of the times it comes down to incorporating the strength and the cardio movement, whatever it is, together to get the best results.
Yeah. These are all just tools, like your strength training is a tool in your toolbox. Your movement throughout the day is a tool. Your nutrition is a tool. Your cardio is a tool. Sleep is a tool. Like all of these things are just tools in your toolbox, and you're trying to just combine them in the best way that you can to optimize your program and see the best results possible. It's not that one is better than the other. They all work in combination together. They all work to achieve the goal of fat loss, building muscle, better health, better cardio, whatever you're looking to achieve. But at the end of the day, they're all tools that need to be used. So these are just kind of some tips on your strength training, your cardio, your nutrition that you can implement into your workout program to create sustainability. I think that's what we're really trying to hammer home is the fad diets, the extremes. Those are things that don't necessarily work in general, but they aren't going to work long term. There's no way that you can sustain these very extreme diets where you're eating 1,200 calories a day, or this watermelon diet where you're literally eating nothing other than watermelon. That is absolutely insane. Or these workouts where you're working out 3 times a day, like those are not sustainable habits. Those are habits that are going to take you away from living. You're going to be spending so much time and energy and mental focus on that it's literally taking away from your life. The fitness is supposed to add to your life. It's not supposed to take away from your life. So
preach.
Create sustainability in your program. I can't say it enough. I can't preach it enough. It is so important. And when you see the progress and you start to see it slowly build and you get in that rhythm, then you're just falling into this lifestyle, and it's going to be so much easier to stay with that and really enjoy the process along the way.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like you said, doing the extremes is only going to add more stress to your life. And we want this to be a stress-free zone. We want you to go to the gym and enjoy your workouts. And like I said, it doesn't have to be a one-size-fits-all. We enjoy running. Do we run because we want to burn all these calories and be in a fat loss? No, because we know that that's not the answer to fat loss. We know that the answer to fat loss is incorporating more movement. Yes, doesn't have to be running, but also dialing in on the diet portion is what is going to help us get into that fat loss. But if you enjoy running, there's nothing wrong with running, but incorporate your strength training if you want to get that body that you desire.
Yes.
So figure out what it is that you enjoy, figure out what tools that you need to make some changes to or that you need to add into your toolbox.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I hope this podcast episode was helpful. If you guys have questions, we would be happy to help you any way that we can. If you're watching on a platform where you can leave comment, we will definitely answer any questions you have, or you can reach out over social media and ask us any questions that we have. Like I said, we are here to help. We have those 2 free resources on our website, fitgrindformula.com. We have the free macro calculation and then also our macro cheat sheet. So it's a free PDF document you can download just to give you some more structure on your nutrition and give you some different ideas on foods to incorporate so that your diet doesn't get boring and you don't get complacent. So,
yeah, it's a good way to get started and reach your fitness goals.
That's right. So thanks for tuning in, guys. We will see you guys in the next episode.